Hi everybody, and thanks for viewing this YouTube fly tying tutorial. The pattern I'm tying for you today is known as GD's Czech Cat Nymph, with GD standing for George Daniel. George is a very well-known fly fisherman, having been a U.S. fly fishing champion. He's also coached the U.S. Youth Fly Fishing Team, and he wrote a great book I encourage all of you to check out, known as Dynamic Nymphing. Well, George created this fly, the Czech Cat Nymph, and it's meant to be an anchor fly if you're familiar at all with the Czech style of nymphing. With Czech nymphing, you have flies that are fished very low in the water column, pretty much on the bottom, and this fly falls in that category. It's extremely heavy, it's tied between sizes 6 and 10, and fished with lots of weight. If you're not a Czech style fisherman, that's okay, you can still fish these patterns because they definitely catch fish. But I also really encourage you to fish these and fish other patterns off of the bend, or even fish some soft tackles as a tag coming off one of your maybe blood knots. What's great about this pattern is that you can vary some of the colors. The original pattern I found in this great book by David Klossmeyer, known as the Master's Fly Box. This book came out in 2012, and David basically contacted a bunch of, we'll say, relatively famous fly fishermen and fly tyers, asked them about their favorite flies, and wrote them up. It's great because it has a vary between some very traditional patterns and some also extremely current and modern creations. Well, George's pattern fell into this book, and the original recipe is in here. On the original recipe, which is not varying much from the one I'm tying today, George uses olive as one of the main colors in the body using this micro chenille. The olive color works really well, but I've since switched out and I'm now using chartreuse. It seems like the chartreuse color not only catches more fish, but also catches more of their attention, and I seem to be catching more fish on that second fly, a fly that I'm fishing off the bend of the Czech Cat Nymph. The other thing I could recommend when fishing this pattern is fish a hook or tie it on a hook that's an extremely heavy hook. I have a couple here from Allen Fly Fisherman, from Allen Fly Fishing. One is their N203BL and another is their N204BL. They both are very similar looking hooks, but if you take a closer look at the N203, even on their website, you'll see that the N203 is a slightly heavier hook. That's a really big thing because you want this fly to get into the water and get down extremely low in that water column as quickly as possible. If you use the N203, it will. I'm not saying the N204 won't. However, having a little bit more weight can never hurt, and I highly encourage you to fish this pattern on a hook that has slightly more weight than you may actually even feel comfortable using. You'll notice I'm going to put some lead wire on it and a tungsten bead. Couple those two things and I guess add that third component of the heavy hook, and I can guarantee you this pattern is getting down quickly. Don't be afraid to lose a few of them. You're going to, that's just part of the Czech style of nymphing. But I really do encourage you to, investigate that style just a little bit more, because if it's something that's out of your comfort zone, that will do nothing but improve your own style of fishing. All right, with that said, let's get to the actual tying of this pattern. I'll list some of the materials. I'm going to list the materials I'm using in this video, though really the only difference between the pattern I'm tying and George's original is his color is olive, whereas I'm using chartreuse for the body. With that said, here's some materials, then I'll get into the actual tying of the fly. Okay, it's time now to tie GD's Czech Cat Nymph. First of all, you can see in the vise I have an Allen Fly Fishing hook. This is the one I referenced earlier. They're N203BL. The BL stands for barbless, which is really nice whenever you're using tungsten, which I am for this pattern. The tungsten bead that I have on is more of a shiny black, though occasionally I will put a dull tungsten bead on. I'm not sure if it makes a difference. I really just believe it's personal preference. So this is my preference right now. Now I'm going to add a little bit of some .015 lead wire. I'm going to get around 14 wraps on this. When I get around that number, I'm just going to pinch it off and just make sure those ends are kind of tucked under. I'll push it up against the bead, but then I'm actually going to pull it back a little bit and create a gap between the bead and that lead. I want to use that as a tie-off point for most of my materials. So I'm just going to leave that there, and I'll actually start my thread at that little point. I'm using just 6/0 black. Now I might just create a little bit of a thread base, if you want to call it that, over this lead wire. I really am concentrating more at the back of it and at the front. I want to have some nice smooth transition points for all my materials. Okay, I'll just head to the back now. I'm ready to start tying some in. I do want to mention this is a size 8 hook. I will tie this as large as a size 6, and though George only recommends tying it to around size 10, I'll even tie it down in sizes 12 and 14 occasionally, though when you get to a size 14, it's no longer necessarily an anchor nymph. All right, next I'm going to tie on a piece of thin skin. This is mottled oak color, and it's olive. This is the color that George recommends. I already have this stuff pre-cut into various widths, which makes it really easy to use. Just want to lock it in. I want to really make sure that it's just straight, and that whenever I pull it over the top, it will be centered. I'll be using that for my wing case. Next, for my ribbing, I'm going to tie the ribbing in second. And the ribbing is just a really small piece of 3X fluorocarbon. You can use just a regular monofilament for that. And then finally for the body, we're going to use this micro UV polar chenille. The color is chartreuse. This is what I was talking about earlier at the beginning. Just going to tie in a small section of this. Lock it in as close to everything else at the rear as possible. And then just wind my thread forward. I have a rotary vise, so I am going to use the rotary feature on this. Though if you don't have a rotary vise, you certainly do not need one to simply wrap chenille forward. I want to make sure that I keep each wrap as close to the previous one as possible while wrapping this thing forward. I don't want any of that black thread showing or any of the lead wire. If you can see a little bit peeking out on your fly, don't worry about it, because it absolutely will happen. On the top, it really doesn't matter so much because you have that thin skin to cover it. Which, by the way, if you really prefer more traditional materials, like my Uncle John and my cousin Helen, that's a joke, Helen, you're more than welcome to use just some turkey feathers or something else that will fit for a wing case. Once I bring my chartreuse about 3/4 of the way forward, that's where I'm going to tie it off. I'm just going to use a few wraps. You don't need a lot there. Then when I grab the same material, this micro polar chenille, but the color black. Let me grab the end of this. It's going all over the place. And with a lot of materials, I'll actually tie it in, not even worry about the end, just tie it down. But for some reason, when I leave the end of this in, it just seems to go all over the place. So I'm just going to make that cut, lift it up. I'm actually just going to cut a couple inches, maybe 3-4 inches max. Grab a little pair of hackle pliers and just use them to wind this forward. Just like with the chartreuse, I try to keep these wraps as close together as possible. I will occasionally just stroke these little fibers back just because I want as many of them showing as possible. As I get near that bead, I am going to just rotate my vise, take a peek at everything, make sure it looks great from the bottom. It's looking fine right now. Hopefully it looks good from your side. Just a couple wraps in front, a couple wraps behind, and get that out of there. All right, next I'm going to bring my thin skin over the top. Again, making sure it just goes straight. Lock it in with a few wraps. And then finally, I'm going to bring my 3X fluorocarbon forward. One wrap at the back, and then I'll be using this as my ribbing the rest of the way. Just like everything else, couple wraps behind it, couple wraps in front of it. Trim that out of the way. Next I'm just going to extend my thread a hair, put 1/2 hitch just to make sure everything's locked in place. Take a quick look at it. You can see these fibers coming forward. If I don't like that too much, I'm just going to stroke them back put one wrap in front of them. And now whip finish. After I have this whip finished, I am going to apply just a little bit of head cement. But as you can see right now, we have the finished GD's Czech Catnip. I won't lie, it is tricky trying to say that. I dare you to try to say that 10 times fast. I definitely won't dare my wife because I'm pretty sure she'd be able to. Alright, I've applied more than enough head cement now. And here's a look at the finished product. I'll give you a look from the top. Looks real nice with that wing case in place, and we have all that ribbing with the 3X fluorocarbon just really securing everything there. When we look at it from the side profile, you can see all these little fibers just jumping out all over the place. We have that nice chartreuse color, which really will capture the fish's attention. And then we have that bead at the top, which is going to help really just to get this fly directly down to the bottom and just be a great anchor fly for the rest of our setup. Well, thanks everybody for viewing this fly tying tutorial of GD's Czech Catnip. Special thanks go out to Allen Fly Fishing for the use of their N203BL hook. You can find those hooks at allenflyfishing.com. And thanks to all of you for viewing this YouTube fly tying tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them directly on this YouTube page, or you can email me at tcamisa@gmail.com. Thanks everybody.